What kind of question would you ask your mentor about shadow work?
You got me on the spot for that. Well, my mentor, created shadow work, so
You got the big cheese. Yeah.
yeah. Like, what's a
Phil Phails for you.
what's the biggest result from engaging in or being coached or having a shadow work experience? Generally, might be a question.
What's the biggest result? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it's about shame lifting. Ultimately, as a human being, I've carried these shaming message that I got at, significant points. It's like there's a book by Peter Levine called Waking the Tiger.
Yeah, somatic experiencing. Yeah.
About trauma.
Yep.
And one of the things that he says in that book is that, if trauma is different for different people. Something that could be traumatic for one person wouldn't be for another person. Right. So if you took a 6-month-old baby, and of course we would never do this, and put him in a walk-in refrigerator for 15 minutes and left him there in a restaurant, as an example of a walk-in, that could have a certain trauma for that 6-month-old baby. If I put you in there for 15 minutes, that wouldn't be traumatic for you as an adult.
Right.
And so my point about that is that, things happen that are traumatic, and generally what they do is they create shaming messages. And those shaming messages are what go into shadow. And they're usually something about what I'm not or what's wrong with me, or usually, like you said earlier, it's about something that's not right about myself. And shadow work is, at its core, about lifting shame off of people. And when I help somebody lift shame off themselves, they're able to see themselves both consciously and hopefully even subconsciously as the positive parts, as the non-shaming place. Like, I'm really enough.
Mm.
I love the way I love is wonderful, and I do exist apart from you. And no, I'm not bad. I'm really good. So I think at the core, that's what shadow work does for people, is it helps to lift shame.
And once shame is lifted,
I start to live more fully, more so like that one that was born, that came into the world with a 360-degree view. I don't censor myself. I don't stop myself. I begin to have more balance, and I begin to show up more fully, more confident about who I am, more relaxed. These are all the things that people want to have.
Yeah.
With more energy, with more excitement about life. You ever hear the Louis C.K. bit about everything's wonderful and nobody's happy?
I think I have.
Talking about being on an airplane, and they just
introduced
we're flying in a chair.
They don't have peanuts, right?
That was Wi-Fi.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
And then the Wi-Fi went out. It was like the first time they ever had it, and the Wi-Fi went out, and the person was like, "This is crap. I can't believe." It's like,
you're flying
in a chair
in the air. Yeah.
Contributing waste to space.
Yeah.
But it's about that kind of excitement. Like, you should be really excited that you're flying in a chair, and instead you're upset about something going on around you. And that's the kind of excitement I think that's the kind of excitement that I want to continue to access in my way, and bring that to the world, which is like, this is freaking awesome. And, death is something that reminds me of that, It sharpens my sword of discernment, recognizing that I'm not going to be here forever.
Yeah.
So how can I make what's really important? And so when I take the shame off myself, I'm able to show up more fully. I'm able to be excited about life. I'm able to love with more compassion. And shadow work at its core helps with that.
And one tool is that death meditation that inviting your own near-death experience.
It's not a shadow work tool per se, but it's a great tool.
Yeah.
I actually learned that for the first time at a training called the Inner King training that Cliff Barry, who created shadow work, helped create with Bill Kauth and Tom Daly and Dimitri Bilger back in the early 90s. And they do a process there about that, keeping the angel of death in front of me as a way to keep what's really important.
Yeah.
Important.
That makes sense.
You notice what happens. 9/11 happened, and everybody was really nice to each other for about 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Those of you that don't remember 9/11, it was back in 2001 when the terrorists crashed into the buildings, and a bunch of people died.
Yeah.
And people were afraid. And for a real short time, people were like, "I love you, brother, sister. How can I help you?" And now it didn't take long to get back into, I'm cutting you off on the road and giving you the finger.
Yeah, a less kind of exciting version of that is when I was a kid. I remember when I lived on this cul-de-sac in Houston, Texas, and when all the power would go out in all the houses, people would start to walk out their front door and then talk to their neighbors.
How can I help you?
How can I help?
Do you need anything?
Yeah.
We've got a generator, and so we've got some refrigerant, all that kind of stuff.
That stuff would start to happen, and there'd be this community form where there wasn't before. Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing I think we should have all the time.
So when I do my shadow work, when I personally put myself in a position, and the thing about shadow work, it's hard to do it by myself because I can't see past the shadow. So it's really lends itself to being supported by somebody that knows how to guide.
Yeah. And
when I do that, I get back in touch with how wonderful I am in a humble way, in a good way. That I'm a wonderful human being. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, right? And I see others with more compassion when I do my shadow work.
Yeah.
Because I see myself with more compassion.
Yeah. Is Cliff Barry still alive?
Yep. I just saw him 3 weeks ago.
How old is he?
Cliff is 76 years old.
Wow.
You can always find out more information about shadow work at www.shadowwork.com.
Yeah, y'all go check it out.
Yes, for sure.
And it's an amazing thing to have the founders still alive and supporting the practice.
Yeah, I consider myself very, very fortunate to consider Cliff Barry a friend.
He's in Dallas?
He's in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, he's in Boulder. Mm-hmm. We'll have to see about getting him on the show. That'd be awesome. Does he talk to folks like this?
I'm sure he would.
Man,
he's awesome. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goodness.
I'd be happy to make that connection.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Mm-hmm. That's Phil Phails' 5 questions. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, traveling is not as easy for him.
We'd have to go to Boulder.
If you go to Boulder, I'll go out there with you.
Heck yeah, we can both interview him. Mm-hmm. That'd be dope.